Hey everybody, Sean from The Good Dog, and we've got Mr. Ernie right here. Hi, Ernie. And so what we're going to do with Ernie tonight in our continuing TGD's how-to video tutorials is start to teach him the very beginnings of recall. And we do this inside. I was going to say interior. We do this indoors, and a lot of reasons for it. And let me just see if I can cover the foundational pieces. If you've been following the program, how we teach it, then you will already have your dog comfortable on a prong collar. You will already have your dog comfortable with place command, already have them comfortable with sit, and already have them comfortable with down. That means that with a lot of recall stuff, the challenge is that a lot of people do it outside first. You can definitely do it that way. I've trained a lot of dogs to recall outside, but it's harder, more distractions, more challenging. But here's the other part of this, is that if you've conditioned the dog to go to place and stay on place, then it gets rid of a lot of the challenges with recall. So for a lot of folks, for a lot of dogs, if you're out and you're like, okay, we're going to work on recall, and you've got them on a, say a 6-footer, or you've got them on a long line, whatever, and you're walking around, the whole gig is you got to get away from them. You got to have the dog wander out, and that way you can get behind them, and then you can do the recall and start the whole kind of like patterning of the recall. Problem is, a lot of dogs already are conditioned to stay close to you if they're on a leash, or even with a long line. Even if they're dragging a long line, they'll stay close to you. They've done a lot of walking stuff, or they're just going to hang with you. So that becomes one of the big challenges for recall, is like half the time you spend trying to like, okay, let me sneak behind this dog and then like, do the recall. Now you can do a lot of different things. You can use food and put food down on the ground as a distraction, and then you can recall them off of food. You can take them to a more exciting place and use that as a distraction. But then you get that kind of trade-off of like, you're trying to use the distraction so you can get away, but then you're trying to also get the dog to recall to you and process what's going on. And that distraction may work counter to what your objective is. So what this is a long explanation, yawning people behind the camera. This is a long explanation for why we do recall the way we do, which is kind of weird. So we train all this stuff inside first and recall inside first. So we keep the distractions low. The dog's already conditioned to place. I don't have to play any kind of like fancy footwork games to try and get away from him, because he's going to be on place. So now I can just easily move away from him, start doing very kind of light recall patterns and moving them off of that. Then here's the other part of recall that can be challenging, is that you'll be the dog, as I've recalled you towards me, the dog tends to come like this and then sheer off, go one direction or the other. And then you've got to move the opposite direction and coach the dog in. And most likely I'll do a couple of different videos showing that, so you guys that want to do it outside, that want to do it with, a leash or a long line, and want to do kind of more of a traditional recall with e-collar, I'll show you how to do that as well. And so I'll show you the footwork involved and why we've opted for this. And I think when you see this, you'll be like, oh, that's pretty interesting. Because here's the other part of it. I don't have to do any hard work to try and get away from him, so I can create the distance absolutely critical to start doing recall. But once I get him to actually move off of place and come to me for this recall, I don't need to do anything smooth. I don't need to like have him come into a sit, although I can do that if I want to do that, but that's not our goal. What we're going to eventually do is, once he's doing this pattern nice, we're going to put another placemat over here. We'll walk him on a few times, get him nice and patterned to that. He's already familiar with place, so he's going to be like, oh, I know place. What we're going to do is have them about 4 feet away, recall, maybe 5 feet away, have him recall off of one, right to the other mat. So it gets rid of all these problems. If you guys can conceptualize it, we get rid of the problem of, okay, I got to get away from the dog. Well, that's already solved because the dog's conditioned to go to place. We've got the distractions turned down to like 0 because we're inside. And then instead of trying to get the dog to come straight into us, we're having the dog go to a mat that they're already conditioned to go to. And so it makes this whole process super easy. So then the dog moves from there, follows you over, goes to the mat, and stays on the mat. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You do a bunch of patterning of that with you standing, here, calling the dog and getting behind the mat, and you'll see it in motion. The dog comes in, and the dog is actually seeing, like, once again, you're the dog, I'm me, placemat right here. I recall you towards me. You're coming to the mat, but I'm right here. So the mat is actually, this perimeter is holding the dog for you, so you don't have to deal with all this kind of fancy footwork of the dog shearing off left or right, or running past you, blowing past you, or anything like that. And then what ends up happening is, after you've done a bunch of patterning like that, then it naturally transfers to where the dog will recall to you. And a lot of people think, well, you've only conditioned the dog to go to a placemat. No, but you've been behind the placemat every time. So you get this extra bang for your buck. You get the dog conditioned to go to the mat, but you're behind it. And so the dog goes, okay, now I know how to do recall place to place, mat to mat, and then you can stretch that as far as you want with as many place commands as you want, in different rooms and things like that. But you've been behind the mat. So now the dog's also conditioned to come to you. So you get this extra benefit. And it may sound like maybe this is too good to be true, or it might just sound weird to you and like, how does all this look? So what I'm gonna try and do is stop talking and do a little bit of the work, and you can see what it looks like. Mainly what I want you to get is the concept behind why we do all of the work inside like this before we start taking dogs outside. We get recalls looking really, really rock solid, where the dog will move all through the house, all sorts of different spots. Even with distractions, we start upping the distractions in the house. Then we move outside. Then we have the dog on a long line. We go to the park. We go somewhere with like mild distractions. Then we start lifting up, or not lifting, but we start raising the bar for the distractions as we go. But we start inside. So I heavily recommend this for anybody looking to train recall and maybe put a different twist on it, and at least try it and see how it works for you. It works so good for us that it's basically the only way that we train it. So we've got him on leash and prong. We've done all of our preliminary work. He knows how to give to prong pressure. He knows how the tool works. He knows how all this stuff works. He knows place. He knows sit. He knows down. And so now we're going to work on a little bit of recall. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn opposite of him. I'm going to give him the command. Once again, breaking all the famous dog trainer rules. I'm going to give him the command as soon as I start moving and putting a little bit of pressure on the leash. Unlike kind of old school recall, which tended to be like, let a dog get out and then like give him a firm snap on the leash, like on a choke chain or on a prong collar or something like that, or even like a slip collar, and then like have them recall like that. This is nothing like that. This is just conditioning them to a very mild pressure, body motion away, verbal cue, some verbal encouragement, eye contact, and all the stuff to bring them in close to me. We'll get that looking fairly decent. Then we'll move them to a mat. And hi, bud. And that's kind of it. I think I covered all the bases. So let's check it out. Let's see what we get. Oh, what I was going to say, sorry, the last thing was, this is just a beginning step, because what we're going to do is next we're going to move into e-collar. And I much prefer to do the mother load of our recall work with an e-collar. So it's great to start it with a leash and prong, but I like to go to e-collar pretty early in the process and get the dog to where they're rock solid with recall with the e-collar. So his name's Ernie, so I'm going to say his name, and then I'm going to give him the command, and I'm going to start moving. Or I might start moving a little sooner. We'll see. We'll check it out. Let's see how the timing is. Ernie, come. Good boy. Good. Sit. Good. So because he came in nice and easy, I actually put him into a sit, and he's pretty solid with that. He's not like going bonkers. So no problem with that. You don't have to have him sit. You can just have him initially come into you if you want. But if he's going to come into me like he did, pretty politely, not like a bullet, not like a rocket, then I'm going to go ahead and use the sit that I've got just to keep him from like going all over the place. So that looked pretty great. So right now I'm going to say, let's go. Good boy. Place. Good. So once again, I can get away from him because he's on place. So we've got the first problem solved, right? You can see him walking around the perimeter of the mat. He understands that he's got to stay there. So this problem is taken care of. And you see, I got one finger through the leash. We're not using a lot of pressure here, and we're not popping it. This is a smooth operation. And it's voice, it's leash pressure, it's body motion, it's eye contact, and it's also there's a whole confluence of things going on if you watch them that help pull him off the mat towards me. So I'll demonstrate all of them together again. Ernie, come. That's a boy. Good. Sit. Good. So a little distracted by stuff outside. We really need to get like curtains for that door for him. Good. Wet. Let's go. Place. What I want you guys to really see is how much leash pressure isn't happening. Pretty much what's happening here, and I'm only using a 4-foot leash, so it's not like we're doing any like big giant recalls. And a lot of folks are like, well, what's the value in that? It's like, all you need is like a couple feet to start the pattern of a recall in a dog's brain, to start to create the understanding of the behavior. So you don't need a 10-foot, 15, 25-foot leash or anything like that. Even a 6-footer, you can start with a 4-footer just like we're doing, and then start moving it out further and further. But what I really want you to see is that when I say his name, give the command, the eye contact, the body motion away, the bending down, the whole thing in, and my arm like moves out like this. What you should see is very little to possibly no leash pressure, but everything else I'm doing with my body and my voice is causing him to move with me. Okay? So let's check it out. Ernie, come. Good boy. Sit. Good. So there was zero leash pressure. Zero, right? So now, let me give you guys a demonstration. Let's go. This will be good. Place. Let me give you a demonstration on what I see a lot of owners know. Good. And we'll be showing our place second phase with corrections, which was what I just did right there. He actually was corrected because he's at that phase now. So you'll be seeing that video as well, where he actually has been patterned over and over and over again, and he knows exactly what place means. And so he just like, well, maybe I'll just step off. So he was corrected for that. Anyways, this is what you'll see. If you're a trainer, this is what you'll see a lot of your clients do. And if you're an owner, this is what you'll probably not notice yourself doing, and which will probably hamper your progress or success. And what they'll do is they'll say the words, but they won't do any body motion, right? So let's say, Ernie, come. Ernie, come. So same words, right? I'm saying the same exact words. Ernie, come. Right? So this is what I want you guys to see, is that if you don't do the whole thing together, you don't get the behavior. Eventually, Ernie, come, without body motion, will bring him to you. But right now, you have to create it through this, like I said, this confluence of all these different things coming together. And so the least part of it is leash pressure. Even everybody's like, oh my God, the prong collar recall, it's got to be like some big, like nailing him to come off. It's like, no, actually, it's far more about all the other things I'm doing than it is the leash pressure. This is just here to guide him if I need it. So now we'll do it one more time. Ernie, come. So he's like, what the hell do you want? Because he doesn't fully understand yet. Now, I did that just for you guys. I typically wouldn't do that because I don't want Ernie to be confused. But let me also clarify this. If you lay a few commands on a dog or make some mistakes, they're going to be fine. They're going to figure out over time, oh, that's what you mean. So like, don't be too hard on yourself. Anyways, now I'm going to do the entire motion. So hopefully, Marta, you can, I don't know if you'll be able to see both of us, but I'm hoping you'll see him and me and the body motions that I'm doing that actually change what just got us stuck, because that's what's going to get in the way of most of the clients. They're going to be able to say something, or they might just move away and not say something. The problem is doing a bunch of stuff simultaneously. So it doesn't look hard if you've done it a million times. But when you go to step up and you're like, oh yeah, I saw it in the video, and all you have to do is say it and bend down and eye contact and move your body backwards, in nice and flowing fashion, and it should be easy. When you go to try and put them all together, you might find it's a little more challenging. So here we go. Ernie, come. That's a boy. Sit. Good. That's a boy. So 0 leash pressure. All I did was use body, eyes, verbal, and it goes with the body too. The bending over, which creates engagement, and the backing up. So this little exercise I call the tractor beam. Let's go. And it's great for problem solving. Place. It's great for problem solving if you have a dog that's stuck somewhere, as far as like, he doesn't want to come to me. He wants to stand by Aunt Martha, or he, I don't know why I'm using this voice. He wants to be under the table and doesn't want to come out or whatever. So if you use this, so if you're the problem, am I in frame? Yeah. Okay. You're the problem dog and I'm trying to get you out of there. Now I can say, Francis, come. I'll try and get you out with the e-collar, or I can leverage everything I have to pull you out. Eye contact, body backing up, body bent down to engage, verbal tone, encouragement with the verbal once the dog starts moving, right? So it's gonna look like this. Francis, come. Just like that, simple, right? It doesn't look like anything, but it is. Francis, come. And you can do the royal hand gesture if you want. I don't know why I'm doing it. You can do something like that, or you can just, Francis, come. What happens is all of these things pull the dog towards you. So you got to watch it with this guy, even without any leash pressure. Ernie, come. That's a boy. Sit. Good. There you go. So that's a pretty good beginning session for recall, right? So you want to practice this a bunch, get your dog pretty solid. And if your dog's a super slowpoke, super unmotivated, then you might want to add some food and see if you can get him more engaged with you. Ernie obviously doesn't need it. If I was adding food to it, he'd probably lose his marbles. Shelby's dog, Samson, if she was doing food work with him, Samson, are you losing me? Samson would absolutely be out of his tree, correct, Shelby? Yes. Yes. So you have to be really careful about, everybody thinks you got food. It's like, maybe not. Use food when it helps. Shun it when it hurts. Okay, now let's see if we can't get another mat out here and then see if we can't start a little bit of place to place to place to place. See what we get, right? Hey everybody, Sean the Good Dog. Okay, so now we've done the initial steps of recall with Mr. Ernie. What I'm going to do is move to the second stage, which I explained in the other video, which is now we're going to have him go to another mat. Now, the thing is, the second mat doesn't need to be far away. In fact, you should only have it a few feet away. This should be a very simple exercise. What people have stuck in their head is that a recall needs to be this big, long thing. It doesn't. It can start with 2 feet, and that's a recall. And then all of a sudden that stretches to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 25 feet, 50 feet, 70. It can become as much as you need it to be, but you start it with a small little thing. And so don't be misled by the work we're doing here and thinking, wow, that doesn't look like that's going to be a recall. You'll see it. If you watch all the videos, you're going to see this expand into a much longer recall, but you'll also see all the commands that we're going to be working with him getting into as far as like off-leash, everything on e-collar, and you'll see how it all expands out from very small, very simple, very easy to put together pieces or individual pieces that you then put together for this greater whole. So now we've got Ernie here on place, the first mat. The second mat is right here. I don't know if you want to like not trip over it, but show everybody where it's at. So we've got, I don't know, I'd say 3 to 4 feet. Nothing much, right? But we do have another mat. And so the whole point is that instead of having him come in to sit, I'm going to have him come in and do place. We're going to do this over and over again until this becomes a very natural pattern for him. And then eventually you won't even have to be standing next to place, and we'll get into all that down the line. But first thing I want to do is walk him onto the mat a few times. So here's a little note. Even if you've already trained your dog to go to place or be on place, stay on place, and then you've done the recall work off of place, and now you're like, okay, cool. Sean said, like, let's put up another mat and let's do recall from place to place. You can't just expect that you put a new mat down that your dog hasn't been working on or practicing on, and that they're going to execute it flawlessly. They're going to like walk over and be like, what's this? They need to sniff it. They need to get familiar. They need to get acclimated. So first step before you go to the actual recall part is taking your dog and just walking them over to it and doing a little bit of place review. So let's try that. Let's go. Place. As I mentioned, we'd get lots of sniffing. So if we tried to do the command straight away, this is what we would have got. A dog who's super distracted by the smells rather than doing the work. So we'll let him get some of this out of his system. Nice. Let's go. Place. Good. This one, he's like, oh yeah, I've been here a million times. Let's go. Come on, bud. Let's go. Ernie, let's go. Place. Good. There you go. Nice. Now let's see how he does with a little bit of perimeter. Now you don't need to, when you're working on this place and reintroducing or revisiting, you don't need to take the same amount of time you did with the other one. He's going to be familiar with the basic concept. You just want to get him familiar with the new mat. And he looks pretty good. Look pretty good. So I'm just going to start from right here and then head over to this mat with him. And I'm going to do all the same stuff, all the same body language, all the same guidance, everything like that, except now I'm going to have him go to this. I'm going to actually step over it. So I direct him like a landing pad that he's just going to go naturally straight onto. So let's check it out. Ernie, come. Good boy. Place. Good. Good. Nice work. Easy as that, right? So we're starting, now we've got a little bit of recall to place, recall to place. The building blocks of something that will be pretty surprising, I think, for most of you folks that are like, I can't, my dog doesn't come when I call them. He won't stay when I ask them. He's all over the place. He's nuts. Like, once you get this, if you really think about it, besides the walk and things like that, this little set of commands that we're working on create two really valuable things for most people's real life world with their dog. Motion when I want it, come to me or come to a location, and then non-motion, go to a spot and don't move. And if most owners just had just that, along with the walk, but just had that for the interior stuff, just come to a certain location or come to me when I call you, and then go to a location and don't move until I tell you otherwise, man, their lives would be pretty damn good. So this might not look like much, but there's a lot of great stuff built into this, and we'll just keep expanding it until you believe it. Ready? Ernie, come. Good boy. Place. Good. Sit. Nice boy. So I can walk around this, see how he does with a little bit of distraction. Now I could do the upside down L like this if he was one of those chronic breakers, but he's actually been doing so good, and we've been working with him every day, so he's pretty darn good about staying on place. So I can just kind of do this and feel pretty comfortable he's not going anywhere. And then, Ernie, come. Good boy. Place. Good. Sit. Good. Nice. Down. Good. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, can we move that mat over a little bit? I'll move this one a little bit, and what we'll do is we'll just start to elongate this a little bit. Okay, gang, so now we've extended the distance between our two mats. I don't know what we got here. I'd say maybe 8 feet, maybe 7, 8 feet, something like that. I don't know. I can't measure. But we've about doubled the distance from what we had before. So we're already within just a few minutes going from one placemat and then calling him off that to me, and then another from one placemat to the other placemat, but very close. And now we're stretching that distance. So this is how we slowly build until you have a dog that's doing amazing things. So I don't want to go too long with this because it's a little bit late, and Ernie has trained already today a couple times, and he's a little bit tired, but I think I can keep him peppy enough to see if he can rock on through this. Let's see if we can do it. See if we can get him. Ernie, come. That's a boy. Place. Good. Sit. That's a boy. Nice work. Great. Now, when you get to the point where you really want to be, where you don't need to use as much body motion, we're not there yet, but when you get to that point where you want to be standing all the way behind the placemat when you call him, then you'd probably want to go to a long line, go to a 15-foot or something like that. But for us, typically, we just like to do, I'll just give you our approach. We just like to get the basic foundation of a recall coming into the person, hearing this command, turning, coming into us or coming to the mat, and then typically we just build it with e-collar and a long line, and it's a very nice transition from that. So rather than just doing this with a long line, just longer, if you're only doing prong work, then that is what you have at your disposal. But if you're going to be doing e-collar work, I would suggest just do something kind of like this, nice and short, and then you'll see how we start layering e-collar over it, and we'll probably get shorter again, distance-wise, and then we'll expand it and expand it and expand it, and we'll go to a long line, but you'll see the whole process. So let's see how we do. Come in this direction. Ernie, come. Come on, bud. Good. Place. Good. Sit. That's a boy. You're doing so good. You're a trooper. So when your dog's pretty solid, now I'm going to add a couple little extra dimensions to this. When your dog's pretty solid with doing place, you can add some extra stuff. And another thing that I want to make sure that I add to this that I haven't remembered to add to when we were teaching place initially is that you guys really want to, we don't have the time to be doing, 90-minute recordings of these sessions. So you're only seeing the work. But if we were training him in a typical session, we would probably do like 5-10 minutes of work, of active work, doing, you know, like these recalls or doing place or whatever. And then we'd probably do 15 minutes, maybe 20, maybe 10. We'd shake it up of just duration work. Be on place, don't move. Maybe 35 minutes. Like there's like, once your dog can handle being in one spot on the mat, you can really extend that out. And what you start to do is get some really, really nice benefits from that, where your dog starts to realize, okay, I just hang in place while the world goes on around me. So just you doing life while your dog's in place, doing duration place, doing the dishes, making lunch, and doing work, answering the door, all that stuff while your dog doesn't move, that's training. That's what we call passive training. So that's super valuable, and I missed talking about that prior. So when you see the video, don't think, okay, I just gotta work the dog for an hour, just like this. No, do like 10 minutes of active work, maybe 15 minutes of active work. And then once you're doing play stuff, then start doing some duration work in between that. If you wanna only do like a 30-minute session total, cool. Do like 5, 6, 7 minutes of active work, then do like 5, 6, 7 minutes of duration. Then do, you know what I mean? Just get creative with it. There was something else what I was gonna say is that, even though he's not facing me, I'll get him to face me. But once again, you see how much pressure I'm putting on this leash. This is literally how I'm holding this leash most of the time. You can start, once they're solid, you can start using the same thing that I've been using to like pull the dog off pull the dog into a recall, or use the tractor beam to problem solve. You can also use that as a proofing mechanism, which means if I haven't given you a command, if I didn't say, Ernie, come, and then do this, if I just do this, then the dog has to start making the distinctions. And like I said at the beginning of these videos, what you first want to do is give the dog all the help you can. Every little piece, every little bit of training wheels you can put on the bike, you want to give them. And then you want to start pulling them away piece by piece by piece, little bits, until the dog is building up bigger distinctions and getting better and more solid and able to, oh, okay, I stay still, you move. Okay, I've seen that. That looks a lot like the recall, but you didn't give me the command. Okay, there's another distinction, right? So you want to start getting the dog to be more knowledgeable about training and how it all works, but you have to proof him through the process. So let me see if I can get his attention. I'll do a little bit of that motion, see how he does with it. What's up? So you saw him like kind of budge. He was like, he almost moved. Good. Good. So I'll reward that, because for him to not move, he almost did. For him to not move actually and break the command, break the place command, just because of my body motion, but I didn't give a verbal command, is super rock and roll. I mean, that's really, really great stuff. So it shows you he's pretty clear-headed. Those are little signs I look for as far as the dog's ability to process, how quick they can move through the arc of training. If they can start putting pieces like that together and have enough impulse control and enough processing and enough kind of quietness of mind to go like, I know what that looks like. That looks just like that recall, but you didn't say anything. Then you know you've got a dog that's actually in a pretty good space, and you might be able to move them a little quicker through the process. That doesn't mean be reckless or just go speedy if your dog's doing some good things, but it does give you some feedback that, maybe my dog's able to move at a brisker pace. If your dog's struggling with these things, then you want to slow down that pace. So, good. 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 So he's doing really great. But what I want you to see is that the things that we use to help the dog, we also use to help them in a different way, which is challenging them. So initially, what I'm using is to help him without challenge, but then I add it without the verbal, creating that distinction, creating more challenge. So that's the concept that's at play here, and I'm thinking about it the whole time while I'm working with the dog. Ready? Ernie, come. 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 Come on, buddy, let's go, 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 go. Place. Good. Sit. Now, because I did so many reps just now of faking him out, then you saw him go, is this a real one? Or are you faking me out again? So this is good practice. So let's check it out. Let's see what we get. So I'll do a fake one. Good. Ernie, come. That's a boy. Place. Good. Sit. Good. So something to think about is keeping your dog in balance. If you do 4,000 fake outs and 1 recall, your dog's going to be way out of balance, especially early on. Your dog's going to be like, I've seen you do this 4 million times and you never call me. And then when you do, he's going to be like, did you really call? You know what I mean? So try and keep it in balance, especially early on. I was doing a bit of a over exaggeration just to show you how it works. But you saw that eventually he was like, it was like the first time he kind of crapped out and didn't do the exercise was because I'd done so many that I kind of put him out of balance, at least for this point. So let's check it out. Good. Ernie, come. Come. Good boy. Place. Good. Sit. And what's cool that time is I watched him almost come. He literally went, when I gave him the command, and then he held it, he was still like a little out of balance. So let's put him back in balance. Let's go. Place. And an easy way to put him back in balance is, Ernie, come. That's a boy. Place. Good. Sit. Putting him back in balance is as easy as, okay, let's stop doing that thing that got him confused. Maybe we're moving a little too fast for that, right? Or maybe I did too many reps or whatever it is. You have to really be present with your dog and go like, wow, he wasn't messing up before. What did I change that just caused things to get wacky? Ernie, come. Let's go, bud. Please. Whoa. Watch out for that chair. Sit. Good. I'm going to come this way so I don't break my neck. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and see if I can do 1 proofing fake out and then call him and see how he does with that. Good. Ernie, come. Good boy. Place. That's good. Sit. Nope. Correction. So he stepped off. Good. Ernie, come. Good boy. Place. Good. When you hear me saying good after place, that's because I'm still building up his skill set, right? So I'm still saying, I'm recalling him, then I'm encouraging him or using a marker for that. Then I'm saying place. I'm typically, if I'm really on it, I'm saying good, and then I'm saying sit, and then I'm saying good. And so eventually the sequence that I'm going to want you guys to have for this is going to be a complete sequence, which will be place, down. And if they go place, sit, down, no. So he's not allowed to be growling at passersby. So that's eventually where you want to get to, where you'll only mark the end of the sequence, right? So think about it this way, guys. Initially, you're marking all of the behaviors that you want to show the dog, that's what I like, that's what I like, that's what I like. Then what you're looking for is you're looking for a completion of a sequence, right? So it would be like, Francis, come, good girl, good boy, whatever. Like that's praise, that's more enticement for the recall than it is a marker. Dog comes this way, place. They should down. If they don't, down. Good. Then your verbal marker ends the sequence. So right now, we're using it for every little piece of the way, but eventually you'll see us as we go through this process, you'll see us fade it to where it will only be recall, place, down, then good. So check it out. You ready, bud? You ready? Ernie, come. Come on, bud. Let's go, go, go. Place. Good. Something about praise that I want to just touch on real quick is that if when I was telling him, Ernie, come, good, 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 and it was causing him to lose his marbles and blow by place or jump up on me or spin in circles or burst into flames, then I would be way more neutral. I'd be like, Ernie, come, good, right? So if the dog is struggling with your praise, just because you hear me doing it, that means it's right for him in this moment currently. But if it changed, if he got too excited, too amped, got into a space where it wasn't serving him, you would see me become much more neutral. When you come, good, place, right? So don't just take this as a one-size-fits-all. That's why our goal is to show you several dogs so you can see us working through lots of different dynamics, contexts, and see how we actually interact, engage, and shift to best serve the dog. So I'm gonna do a couple more and we'll wrap up. And I'd say this is a good introduction to recall from place to place. Ernie, come. Let's go, bud. Come on, come on, come on. Place. Good. Nice. Sit. Good. Okay. Now we can try something. Could be a little early. We could be a little crazy, and it could go totally sideways. But what the hell? So let's check it out. That's the whole thing. Is like there's nothing in this context. I don't have any dogs out. He's not a dangerous dog at this point. Yes, he's got a bite history, but I feel pretty damn comfortable with him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the leash and recall him, and we'll see what happens. And it may be way too early, but it'll give you some ideas of like how that looks. Oftentimes what you'll find, which is why long lines work so well, is that as soon as you drop the leash and give the dog the recall, the dog will literally go like this. As you drop the leash, the dog will go. And then you'll call the dog, and the dog will be like, leash is right there. You're over there. So it depends on the dog, and that's why we always do e-collar stuff, to make sure that we can always reinforce or always enforce that recall, no matter what kind of distraction, no matter what kind of thing that's enticing, no matter what kind of thing the dog is focused on or not focused on or is problematic. So it doesn't mean the dog isn't trained, but let's be honest, dogs get distracted. Lots of things happen in the world. Lots of things happen in life. And so I want to make sure I've always got a dog. If I'm doing recall work with a dog, especially if I'm outside, I want to make sure that dog is going to be as close to 100% reliable as possible. That's why we always use e-collar for that stuff. Okay, so you want to stand back there and nope, we're going to just see how we do. Everybody batten down the hatches. So I got to wake him up because he's a little snoozy. Don't want a sleepy guy if we're going to like do this. You ready? Ernie, come. Good boy. Place. Sit. Good. Very nice. Look at that. So there's a leash on him. Good boy. There's a leash on him, but the leash was not in my hand, right? So what did I use? I used the tractor beam. I used all of the body motion. I used the eye contact. I used all of the stuff I showed you guys. One other little trick that I used is that I set the leash down before I gave the command. Okay, so when you're doing stuff like this, you gotta be strategic and crafty. Like eventually this stuff won't matter. We'll fade all this stuff out, but as you're going through the teaching process, you have to be strategic about this stuff, right? So if I would have called him and then dropped the leash after I called him, what do you think would have happened? To me, it's pretty simple because I've seen what dogs do a million times. I would have called him, dropped the leash. He would have saw the leash drop. It would have distracted him. and most likely he wouldn't have come to me. Now, is that because he's being stubborn, or did he just get distracted and kind of lose his mojo with the whole pattern, right? So instead what I did was I dropped the leash early, kind of kept him engaged with me so he wasn't thinking about the leash, and then used my body as the leash. So let's try it one more time. You ready, bud? You ready? You got one more in you and then we can wrap? Wrap? Rappity wrap wrap? Ernie, come. Good boy. Place. Sit. That's a boy. Good. So I'd say that that's a pretty nice beginning introduction to recall, right? So we've got a dog who comes in with a bite history. He's now far safer to work. He understands impulse control. He understands being polite, respectful. He's been corrected for any kind of like jumping up or any kind of like super tomfoolery, anything like that, which is like a little leash pop. He's been corrected for growling at the door, things like that. So he knows there's consequences for bad choices. And we've just built up a very nice little foundational building blocks for a recall that will one day become far more than just this. And I hope that you guys see from what I explained earlier, all the benefits of training recall inside, starting from a mat, then recalling off the mat, then recalling to another mat, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then the distances get bigger and bigger and bigger. Then eventually you move to an e-collar. Next thing you know, you got an off-leash trained dog. So, but you have to stay tuned for that. So that's Mr. Ernie doing a seriously kick-ass job with this. Nice work, bud. Nice work. And that's the beginnings of recall with leash and prong. So see you guys next time. Who knows what video's next? Stay tuned.